Hello, welcome to FightCore USA.
Today, we are going to talk about a submission that has two names.
Excellent.
In wrestling, it's called a double wrist lock. And in jiu-jitsu, it's known as the Kimura. In this video, I am going to show you how to perform this technique and give you some tips on when to use it. If you've been watching this channel for a while, then you already know how I feel about submissions. They are an essential part of any self-defense arsenal because they allow you to control your opponent and force them to submit. Once you learn a few basic submissions, you'll be able to use them in many different situations. This is one of my favorite submissions because it can be done from so many different positions, and if you use it properly, it can be very effective. This submission is named after its inventor, Kimura. There was a Japanese wrestler and boxer who became famous for defeating Helio Gracie in a mixed martial arts match in 1951. The technique has since become one of the most popular submissions in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When performing this submission, make sure you have a tight grip on both wrists. You want to pull them close to your body so that your opponent cannot gouge out your eyes. I always tell my students to protect their head, and gouging out your eyes is a pretty easy way to cause some serious damage. Once you have a tight grip on the wrists, you want to bring them over top of your head. This will help you to keep your opponent's arms close to your body and prevent them from gouging out your eyes. It also helps to limit the amount of space your opponent has to maneuver. By bringing his arms over top of your head, you will restrict the amount of movement he has and make it more difficult for him to escape. After you've brought their wrists over top of your head, you need to apply pressure to the shoulder. This will help to stretch out the shoulder joint and cause your opponent to sleep. You can apply pressure to this shoulder by pushing down on it with your knee, or as you apply pressure, you'll want to keep your head close to your opponent so that he cannot gouge out your eyes. Be careful not to push down too hard though, or you could seriously injure your opponent. If you want to increase the effectiveness of this submission, you can also try to pull the head towards you. This will help to tighten the hold and make it more difficult for your opponent to escape. You can pull on the head with your hands or knees. Just be careful not to pull too hard, as this could cause injury. As you are performing this submission, you need to keep your head close to your opponent so that he cannot gouge out your eyes. This is very important for safety reasons. If you do not keep your head close to his, then he may be able to gouge out your eyes, which would cause serious damage. Make sure to keep your head close to his throughout the entire submission. Another thing you need to be aware of when performing this submission is your own safety. If you're not careful, your opponent may be able to gouge out your eyes, which would cause serious damage. To prevent this from happening, make sure to keep your head close to his and protect your eyes at all times. One of the things I love about this submission is that it can be used in many different situations. For example, you can use it when your opponent is in the guard position or when he is trying to take your back. It can also be used as a counter to a variety of different attacks. When your opponent least expects it, you can catch him off guard and force him to sleep to perform this submission from the guard position. You first need to get your head close to your opponent so that he cannot gouge out your eyes. Once you have done this, you need to grab both of his wrists and pull them over top of your head. You then need to apply pressure to his shoulder in order to stretch out the joint and cause him to sleep. You can apply pressure by pushing down on his shoulder with your knee or elbow. If your opponent is trying to take your back, you can use the same technique to stop him. You need to get your head close to his. Grab both of his wrists, pull them over top of your head, and apply pressure to his shoulder. This will cause him to sleep, and you will be able to retain your position. If your opponent is attacking you with punches or kicks, you can use the Kimura as a counterattack. To do this, you need to block his attack and then quickly move into position to apply the hold. Once you have grabbed both of his wrists and pulled them over top of your head, you need to apply pressure to his shoulder in order to stretch out the joint and cause him to sleep. When performing this submission, it is important to remember to keep your head close to your opponent S, so that he cannot gouge out your eyes. If you do not keep your head close to his, then he may be able to gouge out your eyes, which would cause serious damage. Make sure to keep your head close to his throughout the entire submission. Another thing you need to be aware of when performing this submission is your own safety. If you are not careful, your opponent may be able to gouge out your eyes, which would cause serious damage. To prevent this from happening, make sure to keep your head close to his and protect your eyes at all times. When performing the Kimura, you want to make sure that you have a tight grip on both wrists. You don't want any slack in the hold, or your opponent could escape. You also want to make sure that you are applying pressure to the shoulder. This is what will cause your opponent to fall asleep. If you are not applying enough pressure, the hold will not be effective. When performing this submission, you should be aware of your surroundings. If you're in a public place, there may be other people around who could potentially cause problems. You should also be aware of any objects in your surroundings that could be used as weapons against you. This is a very old school type of hold, and it dates all the way back to the early days of judo and even sumo wrestling. It's a very basic type of hold that has been used for centuries because it works. When you see someone apply this type of hold in real life, it's usually done with a little bit more flair. For example, the person doing the hold will often try to jump over the head of the person they're holding to apply more pressure to their neck, or they might pull their head down towards their knee in order to further restrict blood flow to the brain. No matter how it's done, the result is always the same. The person being held will eventually fall asleep and be completely helpless. This type of hold is a great one to have in your arsenal because it can be used in a variety of different situations. It's a very versatile move that can be used from different positions, making it a valuable addition to any martial artist's repertoire. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, this is a move that is definitely worth learning. There are many ways to apply the Kimura, but all of them involve having a tight grip on both of your opponent's wrists. From there, you will want to bring those wrists over the top of your head and apply pressure to their shoulder. As you do this, make sure to keep your head close to your opponent so that he cannot gouge out your eyes. Apply pressure until your opponent falls asleep, and you will have successfully executed the Kimura. Kimura is one of the most effective submissions in all of martial arts. When performed correctly, it is almost impossible to escape and will put your opponent to sleep in no time. With a little practice, you will be able to use this submission to dominate your opponents. What do you think of this submission? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you are looking to learn more about self-defense, make sure to check out our website. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.
Okay guys, thank you for watching my videos.